First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Terry for the invitation to be here today, and to the presidents of the African Development Bank and the Asian Development Bank for their insightful comments. At the World Bank, we like to say that inclusive green growth is the path to sustainable development, but the devil is in the details. And we know that this is going to require overcoming market failures that have led to growth coming at the expense of the environment for over 250 years. So when we think about how to accelerate the transition to a green economy, I think one of the things is how do we provide incentives for people to move more quickly? How do we provide incentives that lead to a behavior change of consumers and of private companies in particular? Well, we have to get the prices right. As we know, we're an institution of economists. And when we think about getting the prices right, I think, one thing is if we had a price of carbon, or if we consistently valued ecosystem services, then that would be great. We would probably get the prices right, but we don't. So, or at least the price of carbon is not probably what it should be. So what can we do in the absence of that? Well, I think there are a lot of things that the countries that we're working with want to do and are starting to think about doing more aggressively. First of all, they have to clarify property rights. So if you're talking about fisheries license or forestry concessions, we have to figure out in a lot of countries where the sort of property rights aren't clear, how to clarify them. And then the second thing is we have to eliminate perverse subsidies. Last year, the world paid $1 trillion to subsidize the overexploitation of fossil fuels, water, land, and marine resources. And we really can't afford to do that. And a lot of countries now that we're working with are starting to say, well, actually, it would be nice to have that money back to do some other things. And so how do you start to help them figure out the political economy of subsidy reform? And that's one of the things that we're trying to think about along with our cousins at the IMF. And I think, the third thing is, how do we create disincentives through taxes and regulation? And that also is increasingly on the minds of our client countries. And I think a lot of countries are starting to look at carbon taxes. They're starting to look at cap and trade or energy efficiency schemes as they have here in India. And I think all in all, that's trying to strive towards quickly making growth more efficient. And hopefully they'll continue to go in that direction, and that's one of the things which we really want to think about helping countries to do. But price signals and regulations only really work if consumers and companies have alternatives. So if you're going to try to convince people to use their cars less, then you need alternatives. You need public transport. If you want to remove fuel subsidies, you need to give consumers alternatives in public transport. And these investments can also lead to growth. They can yield substantial economic benefits. But there's some issues in terms of how you finance them. So we're looking at that with our clients as well. And green policies, as they are, should be really tailored to each individual country or even city. More and more, we're looking at cities. And I was debating today with some of the staff at the World Bank here in Delhi the path of urban development in India, and they told me that there were 6 new cities on the map this year that weren't on the map last year. And one of the questions that immediately comes to mind is, how well are we planning for those new cities? Are they being designed in a way that minimizes automobile use? Because this is a big issue for Asia in the next 10 years. There's going to be a huge growth in cities. But if we don't make the right choices, these cities could lock into infrastructure that will affect their ability to be green for decades to come. And then finally, I think green policies are not necessarily inclusive, and I think we really have to think about how to design them to protect the poor and the vulnerable, how to design them with gender balance in mind, and how to take actions that yield immediate benefits and results in local communities. We know for one of the big issues in the coming years is the resilience of our communities and of our cities. And if we can, say, stop emissions tomorrow, we're still going to be dealing with the need to transition in a major way and to have cities and economies and countries become more resilient. So we have to accelerate the preparation of resilience. And I think that takes money. And one of the things which you could do if you reformed your subsidy system was you could generate revenues that could be directed towards those investments. And finally, I think, you know, the World Bank is looking a lot at how to accelerate financing in general, but we're not kidding ourselves that that financing is going to come from us. It's really got to come from the private sector. And so we have to figure out how to address issues around risk management that will finally overcome really the obstacles to investment in infrastructure that are not new, that we've been facing for a long time. Africa certainly has been trying to figure that out for a long time. And I think this is the time where we absolutely have to unlock private sector finance towards infrastructure. And in order to do that, we have to up our game on risk management, because nobody's going to force the private sector to invest in infrastructure. They have to see that the risks are managed and that the returns are adequate. So we're spending a lot of time talking about that, and I think that's going to be part of the solution. Finally, I guess we really need to continue working on some of the pricing, and we're doing a lot in our own portfolio along with the other multilateral development banks to try to implement greenhouse gas analysis and carbon footprinting in our portfolio. And I think we hope to accelerate that work over the year ahead. And we need to continue valuing things beyond carbon. We need to value ecosystem services. And so I think increasingly, we spoke a lot at Rio Plus 20 about doing that at the macro level, but we really need to figure out how to do it at the investment level as well so that we'll make better choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.